Thousands of migrant workers died in Qatar building the stadiums and infrastructure for the 2022 World Cup. What happened? We take you to Nepal for first-hand accounts from their families who ask, why are no governments, companies, or organizations taking responsibility? The inside story, cause of death, migrant workers, and the World Cup.
Hi, I'm Heather Murdock, VOA's Middle East correspondent here in Egypt. The FIFA World Cup is perhaps the biggest sporting event of them all. More than 3.5 billion people watched the previous tournament on television. That's almost half the world. But the 2022 World Cup in Qatar has been mired in controversy since the small Gulf country was named host 12 years ago. Qatar has spent more than $200 billion on new World Cup stadiums and related infrastructure. But the small country has almost no native construction workers. That has required a massive amount of workers to travel to Qatar. Their system, known as kafala, of importing labor, has led to accusations of unsafe working conditions, abuse, and exploitation by construction companies, and the deaths of thousands. This week, we will take you to Nepal, where we will meet some of these workers and the families who lost loved ones in Qatar. Here is Cause of Death, Migrant Workers and the 2022 Qatar World Cup.
मलाई लाग्छ फुटबल यो संसारकै सबभन्दा लोकप्रिय खेल यो खेल्दा मलाई एकदम खुसी महसुस हुन्छ यहाँ चाहिँ सब लोकल टिमहरु हुन्छ एभ्रीवान इज सेलिब्रेटिङ वी वन द गेम सेलिब्रेसन गर्न त्यो ट्रफीहरुलाई फोटोहरु खिचाउने हो अनि आएपछि क्याश प्राइज हुन्छ अलिअलि त्यसको केही पार्टिसिपेट गर्ने हो सब केटाहरु मिलेर
Certainly the most surprising decision was the 2022 victory by Qatar to become both the first Middle East nation and the smallest nation to host a FIFA World Cup.
An estimated 2 million migrant workers are in Qatar, mostly from South Asia and Africa. There were widespread complaints of unpaid wages, dire living conditions and dangerous construction sites.
All the stadiums, they are state of the art, they are beautiful.
But in no way can FIFA accept to be responsible for the welfare of workers. They belong to commercial and industrial companies of other countries. They couldn't do that.
अनि म नेपालबाट अनि मेरो अंकलको डेथ चाहिँ लगभग 3.5 महिना पहिले कतारमा भएको थियो
We find coffins with dead bodies arriving to Kathmandu airport.
एउटा छोरा थियो उ त पनि बित्यो
कतारमै बित्यो
अनि मलाई फोन गरे मेरो बाले यसो भइसकेछ कहाँ छु तिमी छिटो आइजा घरमा
यो नेक्स्ट महिना यसको टिकट ओके थियो अनि म जान्छु आज दिनमा बात गरेको रातिमा भोलि 4 बजे
जावा हमरो बच्चा त हरा
मेरो नाम रमेश गुप्ता Our team name is Sri Mahavir Sports Club. गाउँमै बस्न पाए भने कुनै सानो व्यापार गर्थे जस्तै आफ्नो पसल छ उसलाई अलि एक्सप्यान्ड गर्थे जनता छ जति मान्छे छ यहाँ त्यति रोजगारी दिन सकेको छैन यहाँको सरकारले अनि हामीहरुलाई त्यो विवश भएर घर धान्न घर परिवार चलाउन आफ्नो भविष्य राम्रो बनाउन विदेश नै जानुपर्छ अब कुन काम पाउने हो त्यो त फिक्स छैन तर मलाई मेरो त्यो काम गर्ने क्षमता अनुसार मलाई त्यो लाइक अफिस बोयमा राम्रो हुन्थ्यो या क्यासियरमा गर्न चाहन्छु लाग्छ अब विदेशतिर त्यस्तो काम नै हुन्छ बिल्डिङ सिल्डिङ कन्स्ट्रक्सनहरुमा अब के हुन्छ थाहै हुँदैन डर त लाग्छ अब चाहिँ विदेशमा मन चाहे काम मिल्दैन अब जे काम पाउँछ त्यही नै गर्छ मान्छेहरु अब पढे लेखेको थिएन अनि जे काम दिन्छ त्यही नै गर्नुपर्छ त्यस्तै थियो कतारमा त धेरै जना मर्छन्
In 2010, when Qatar clinched its bid to host the 2022 FIFA World Cup, the controversies began. The tiny Gulf country didn't have the infrastructure in place to host the World Cup. Qatari representatives were accused of bribing their way to securing the cup. Investigations into alleged corruption continue more than a decade later. There were complaints summer heat, sometimes soaring to 50 degrees, was too much for fans and players. That was solved by moving the games to the winter. And while wealthy, Qatar has virtually no native construction workers. But over the next 10 years, the population of foreign workers grew, adding more than 65% to the foreign population. The influx meant the already fraught system of hiring abroad for labor would be put to the test. And it was. Construction boomed. A $300 million renovation of its Khalifa International Stadium, 7 new stadiums, and a new luxury city, Lusail, where the Lusail iconic stadium will host the World Cup final. Qatar now boasts more than 100 new hotels and serviced residences, new skyscrapers, entertainment plazas, museums, public artworks, and a complete new metro and tram system. As quickly as all those buildings rose, so too did reports of human rights abuses of the people who were building them. Human rights groups, including Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, as well as news media, reported that workers were subjected to wage theft and restrictions on their movement. Most egregiously, they said, workers suffered from dangerous working and living conditions. Thousands of workers died during Qatar 2022 World Cup-related construction, far more than in the run-up to every other World Cup or Olympic Games in the past 30 years combined. Amnesty International says most death certificates list natural causes or cardiac arrest as the cause of death. Causes that shift the blame and liability away from employers.
उहाँ बस्नुहुन्थ्यो कतारमै अनि त्यहाँ भएको साथीहरू गाउँको मान्छेहरू त्यहाँ कतारमा छन् धेरै जो टोलको गाउँको सबले सहयोग गरेको थियो त्यहाँ बस्ने सब साथीहरूले अनि करिब 3 लाख जति खर्च भएको थियो उहाँको बडी ल्याउनलाई अनि सबले सहयोग गरेर
हमर नाम मिला दिसा हम घर वाला मृत्यु को भगले कतार में 3-4 महीना भगले और बेटा 15-16 वर्ष के है और बुआ एगो 10 वर्ष के है एगो 8 वर्ष के है एगो 5.5 साल के कहियो 7 बजे है कहियो 6 बजे है कहियो 5 में उठ गेल ता उठली अंगना घर बहार लीजिए दुकान से घर बहार लिए दुकान खोल ली फिर बुआ सबको बिठा ली तो चाय नाश्ता बनेली चाय नाश्ता कऽ के सबको तब खाना गोरी तब खाना बनेली बन में तो खाना पीना बना के माने कोनो काम तो इधरो गले नहीं तो दुकान में बैसली बुआ को इधर चले गए बाजार उजार तो दुकान में बैसली दुकान के आमदारी तो नहीं हो जे माने बिक्री बटाल तो एक फिर सामान है अभी नहीं हुई है दुकान एम लास्टे कनी खोलबे पूंजी लगे लिए तो खोलबे के लिए 3-4 महीना भेले पूंजी लगेला तो वही के फिर बिक्री आयल ओके फिर सामान अनहर होने अभी नहीं घर में लगे वह सामान पहले छले हिनका ना तो ओकरे पैसा किन के लेने से 1.5 चावल सब चले यह काम नहीं कर रहा चाचा यह काम नहीं कर अथी भोर में सुबह में जाए 9 बजे तो 7 बजे 6 बजे कोई 4 बजे ना चले बसले ड्यूटी में से जेठकी जाने के बेटा नहीं रहा है वही जा अंकल लगते माने चच्चे वही जा तो वह मालूम दिला किछु भेले देह में दुख हमरा से कथु निकल हमरा बालो बच्चे कते निक बतिया उतिया छले सब कोइयो किछु निकल के सामने एके देखा निकल के सबके पार्टी नहीं हुआ है कतार से में तो पार्टी कल कर खाली दर्द हुई एतबे और किछु नहीं अभी के दर्द के लिए 4 दिन में से हमरा बाजे के मन नहीं करे बातें करे के मन के आने खाए इच्छा नहीं करे खाए के अब आदमी खत्म हो तो कुछ माने दिमाग के नहीं काम कर कते सो जाए उसने तो मैंने सबके तो रोए लगल शोरूम में खत्म हो गए जिंदा रहे तब न कोनो बात तब कथी सोचे कोनो दिमाग के नहीं काम शहर में जखनू माने जखनू मन पड़े है तो इतना अपने अपने कनात रहे जितना मन पड़े थे अपने कनात
But what we see every day, we find coffins with dead bodies arriving to Kathmandu airport. How can it be a natural death? Either it should be an injury, either it should be some serious illness. How can a person 20 years old die naturally? Of course, now if we go beyond the death, if we try to explore the cause of death, what were the causes of death? What were the triggers that caused the complication? So the person died. The non-cardiac death, if we evaluate, then there are several work injuries, fall from height, there are poisoning, there are homesickness leading to depression and suicide. And this extreme atmospheric condition where the workers work the day long, it causes dehydration, it may cause heat stroke, it may cause massive dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, and this may lead to death. Sweating is a defense mechanism, it cools the body. But when the person is exposed to extreme hot climate for a long duration of time, this mechanism, body mechanism fails. The sweating cannot cool down the body. So the temperature of the body rises, and this leads to several complications which may later on cause death. Death may occur immediately at the spot, or it may occur even hours and days later.
Because their deaths are unexplained, not investigated properly, as a result their families are denied of compensation. And also they do not know how their near and dear one died in Qatar. It could be heat, and it could be because of the pressure. The suicide rate is also very high because they take loan, they must have a lot of mental pressure also.
Despite the danger, workers keep traveling to Qatar for the chance to work. Most come from India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, also the Philippines, Kenya, Sudan, Uganda, and Nigeria. Countries where jobs are scarce and poverty is rampant. In Nepal, one of Asia's poorest countries, 56% of households receive remittances from these workers abroad. That's more than half the country dependent on their income. The death of a family's main earner can be devastating. If a worker is deemed to have died due to his job, his family is compensated financially. But if his death certificate says he died of natural causes or other non-work-related reasons, the family gets nothing from the employer. And this is usually the case. Some say the worker hiring process, known as kafala, is the heart of the problem.
Due to this kafala system, which is also called sponsorship system, the workers were tied to their employers. They were not allowed to switch their jobs, and they were not allowed to leave the country without taking permission from the employer. As a result, migrant workers were forced to remain submissive to labor exploitation and abuses.
The kafala system is a legal framework used in many Middle Eastern countries to help employers hire workers from abroad, usually for household help or manual labor, and puts the employer in charge of the workers' legal and visa issues. Under kafala, workers need employers' permission to enter the country, stay in the country, change jobs, and leave the country. It's a system so ripe for abuse that one Nepalese diplomat referred to Qatar as an open jail. Human Rights Watch said some of the abuses could amount to modern slavery. Years of criticism of harsh working conditions, low or no pay, and deportations because employers withheld documents led Qatar to implement reforms starting in 2017 and officially dismantle the kafala system. Among the improvements have been a set minimum wage, 1,000 Qatari riyals a month, about $275, and a stipend for food and housing. That standard appears to be generally upheld. Workers officially no longer need their employer's permission to travel or change jobs. But many people say they still need to seek that permission, often for fear of retribution. Others who want to leave can't, as they owe large sums of money to lenders who help them pay recruitment companies. And they still have no right to join unions or participate in strikes. 3 months before the Games, a local advocacy group reported 60 workers were detained, some of whom were deported for protesting unpaid wages, according to the Associated Press. The Qatari government acknowledged arrests for breaching public safety laws, but declined to provide details.
So in the paper, like kafala has been like dismantled, but in terms like if you see the practicality, like but still it exists in Qatar. So in my opinion, we think that FIFA and Qatar, they should establish a fund, comprehensive program to provide remedy to the migrant worker who face exploitation and abuses for last 12 years, and that went unaddressed. And it should not be limited to migrant workers who worked in stadiums or like in the training site, but also like other workers who were deployed in preparation or for delivery of the tournament. We continue to receive cases from migrant workers through phone calls or through emails complaining about like they have not been paid for last few months, and also like some workers they complained of they were underpaid or they were not paid for overtime.
यहाँ काम नपाएर यस्तो गर्नुपर्छ, नत्र हामीहरूको पनि त्यस्तो हुन्छ कि गाउँमै बसो, देशकै लागि केही गरौँ, देशमै काम गरौँ, देशमै खाऊ, गाउँकै लागि केही गरौँ. अब गएपछि आई थिङ्क मिनिमम 2 साल 3 साल त बस्छु. त्यसपछि आएपछि अलि के गर्छु अब सोच्छु. अब घरमा आमा हुनुहुन्छ, बुवा हुनुहुन्छ, दाइ हुनुहुन्छ ठुलो, अनि दाइहरूले नै अहिलेसम्म मलाई जे गरिरहेछ उहाँहरूलाई सपोर्ट गर्नु. अब उहाँहरू अब गर्नुपर्छ. हजुर, अब काम गर्ने जान्छन्, अब काम गर्दाखेरि केही एक्सिडेन्ट भयो भने
विदेश गेलै कहलकै अब धियापुता सब छोट छोट रही ने, तब ओकरे सबके लागि अब गेली ने, कथी खुअतै ओकरा सबके दिन के कहै छै. उ काम ओकरा ऊपरी अथी सब करी रही छलिए, नीचा से ऊपरी चढ़ी छलिए, उ अथी सब करी छलिए, मसाला सब लके नहीं जाई ऊपरी बनबी. सबके राते में मृत्यु भैली, तो हमरा सबके भोर में सुबह में था भैली, फोन कैलकी दूसरे आदमी तब जन वहाँ मृत्यु भैली नहीं, तो हम 15 दिन में ले लहास ओकरा अथी कहियन काज क्रिया कैली. अभी पैसा अब कतऽ से अथी खेत छलै 1 कट्ठा, तो वह बेचलिए, तब धियापुता के खीबी छी, कथी करबी. नहीं छलिया दोसर गाम के लोग मरी छलिया
यहाँ त 6 किलो धान थियो अर्को मान्छेले हेर्दाखेरि त्यो पनि भने थियो कि म जाने म भनिरहेको थियो नजानु त्यो अर्को मान्छेले सपट्टि लिएर अनि उहाँ मैले पठायो त्यसको हो सपट्टि जना कर्जा भयो उहाँहरू भने थियो प्राइमर रङ पोइन्ट अनि उहाँ गएर त्यही बेलचामा राखिदियो ऊ त भने थियो गाह्रो छ त्यो ठक मान्छे त ठक्यो गाह्रो छ म वहाँबाट म आउँछु भने मैले भनेको आज सज छ भोलि सज छ कति दिनमा हुन्छ पैसा त थोरै दिन्छ 300 कि कति उहाँको 300 रुपियाँ दिइरहेछ उहाँको महिनाको लेबरमा त त्यसले त बिस्तारै सधाएर म आउँछु उसले भनेछ त्यो सधायो नि अब म अब आउँछु छिटो आउनुहोस् मैले भनेको त त्यसको त नम्बर थियो त्यहीँबाट फोन गर्यो उसले जित्ने दिथ्यो अनि अब त अचम्म पर्यो
के कारण भयो कि घरको कर्जा धेरै थियो माथि कर्जाबाट परेशान गर्दै थियो त मेरो यो दाइले पासपोर्ट बनाएर भनेको के कतरमा काम गर यहीँ बस त मेरो भाइले बोलाएर लिएर गयो कतर 3 सालमा यो नेक्स्ट महिना यसको टिकट ओके थियो भन्छ म जान्छु आज दिनमा बात गरेको रातिमा भोलि 4 बजे डेट भयो यसको
and they are forced to work for a longer period during the daytime. They are more exposed to the outdoor heat. The living condition is poor. The health checkup system is not that good that it should be. So all these factors are causing the rise in death in these workers.
सब तो अच्छे चलिए बढ़िया है बोलियो भाषा सब बड़ शुद्ध हो बड़ सब बड़ चंदा He was very good. रोरा याने रारू याने लड़ने बने सब बड़ शुद्ध
गाउँमा हैन हाम्रो गाउँ चाहिँ धेरै नै सुन्दर छ मलाई धेरै सुन्दर लाग्छ मलाई गाउँ छोडेर जान मन छैन कहीँ जानु मन हुँदैन गाउँमा बस्दाखेरि अब गाउँमा साथीहरूसँग फुटबल खेल्न चाहन्छु फुटबल मेरो मन पर्ने खेल हो my favorite
That's all for now. Watch documentaries like this one on our free streaming app, VOA+. Stay up to date with the news at voanews.com. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at VOA News. For the team that traveled to Nepal and worked behind the scenes to bring you today's show, I'm Heather Murdock. We'll see you next week for The Inside Story.